Yo, what up, my Bionicleites? Bionicleites? My Bionacolites? That's the best thing I've ever come up with in my life. What up, my Bionacolites? Now, what I'm about to say might make you angry, because I'm assuming that you've come here after listening to my last 3 hours of Bionicle content. However, today we're going to be covering the story events of Bionicle 2006. And 2006 is where the real story of Bionicle starts. And this may come as a surprise to many people, because I'm going to go ahead and say that the majority of people that engaged with Bionicle during its run at all only saw the Mask of Light movie, and in that case, they would have gotten off the Bionicle train after 2003, and then maybe some people stuck around a little bit longer for the next two movies, and then they would have gotten off the Bionicle train in 2005. 2006, for some godforsaken reason, is the year that they stopped making movies and therefore having any kind of presence in the broader cultural zeitgeist, and instead took all their animation budget and poured it into unbelievably sick commercials and licensing the All-American Rejects. We'll get to that later. And as a result of this, I assume that most people think that 2001 to 2005 Bionicle was the story of Bionicle, and that's not true at all. I should also note before we start that 2006 is the year where Bionicle's story starts to do something that I'm going to refer to as fractalize. You know how when you look at a fractal, you're like, oh, well, that's just an image, but then if you look closer, you realize that any given part of it is a endlessly repeating recursive loop that descends into an infinity of madness. So Bionicle starts to fractalize. Point is, this is where things really get started, and honestly, I'm really excited to talk about it, so let's get right into it. Part 3, the Voya Nui era. So given that the last 2 years of Bionicle and my last 2 videos were all a flashback, I'm gonna assume that maybe you don't remember where we were at exactly, so let's recap. 1,000 years after the events of the Metru Nui era, the Toa Mata wash up on the island of Mata Nui, a refugee colony established by the former Toa Metru, now Turaga, for the mind-wiped Matoran of Metru Nui, who lost their memories in the Great Cataclysm, a massive catastrophic event, a cataclysm you might say, triggered by Makuta during the same moment that he cast the Great Spirit Mata Nui into eternal slumber. The Toa Mata became the Toa Nuva, attained a 7th member in the form of Taka Nuva, the Toa of Light, defeated Makuta, and opened the way back to Metru Nui. Now they, the Turaga, and the Matoran have returned to Metru Nui to reclaim their homeland and get it repaired and functioning properly, which for unclear reasons is critical to the reawakening of the Great Spirit. Recap complete. So everything is going great, everybody is back on Metru Nui, fixing the place up and getting used to the change of scenery, when Turaga Duma, the real Turaga Duma, not the one that was actually Makuta in disguise, calls the Toa Nuva into a special meeting with him and the other Turaga, in which he reveals that there is one tiny snag in the whole reawakening the Great Spirit thing, which is that being in a coma for 1,000 years is controversially not great for somebody's health, and therefore the Great Spirit Mata Nui is not just asleep, he is also dying, and reawakening him isn't really going to help much if he is dead. Furthermore, since Mata Nui is custodian of the universe, if he dies, basically the entire Matoran universe and everybody in it dies with him. So basically, this is not good. But fortunately, there is a way out. A fail-safe put in place by the great beings 100,000 years ago for precisely this type of situation. The Toa Inika, the Mask of Life, which has the power to restore Mata Nui to full health. The Mask of Life, by the way, is not to be confused with the Mask of Light, which is also a very important plot device mask that sounds almost exactly the same. Now, unfortunately, the Mask of Life is hidden on Voya Nui, the world's worst island. Voya Nui was formerly part of a landmass called the Southern Continent, but it broke off during the Great Cataclysm and floated up to the surface. So like the island of Mata Nui, it is actually in the ocean and not in the Matoran universe, but unlike the island of Mata Nui, Voya Nui sucks. It's just this awful barren rock with an active volcano in the middle. The Matoran that live there are super weird and messed up. Their only Turaga died in the Great Cataclysm, and they have no Toa to protect them. So basically, it's just the worst. It's just the worst place. But the Mask of Life is hidden somewhere on Voya Nui. So the Toa Nuva, minus Taka Nuva, who has to stay behind to protect Metru Nui, are dispatched to retrieve it. Thing is, they've got some competition.
Yo, Piraka. Yo, Piraka. The gang on the loose, nothing you can do, nothing's coming back.
Okay, so these guys are called the Piraka. And the Piraka are maybe my favorite characters in all of Bionicle for a host of reasons. First and foremost, the marketing. So there was this song in the Piraka commercials aptly titled The Piraka Rap, which I really invite you to go and look up and listen to for yourself because, oh man, nothing better has ever been made.
Piraka on the street, it's time, take taco. The gang is on the loose and in your school locker. At your home too, in your friend's room, nothing you can do. The gang is on the loose.
Oof. Bars, am I right? You know, man, the gang really do be on the loose, and if I'm being totally honest, there's nothing you can do. Now, in terms of their place in the story, the Piraka are something that it's actually kind of shocking that we haven't gotten yet, which is a proper villain team. I mean, Bionicle has had villains, clearly, and it's also had groups of color-coded antagonists, but those antagonists have never really been characters in their own right. The Vaki, the Viscera, the Rakshi, the Borak, hallowed be thy name. All of those have just been armies of generic goons for the Toa to just blow through. The closest thing we've gotten to an actual villain team is the Borak Kal, and the Borak Kal were all just sort of the same generically evil, vaguely arrogant guy, and also, frankly, fuck the Borak Kal. But we've never had a true Psycho Rangers or Powerpuff Boys. That's not what they're called. What are they called? I don't remember what they're called, but we've never had them until the Piraka, who are all their own individual characters with their own names and personalities. What's fun about the Piraka's personalities is that all of them are kind of a subversion of the usual stereotypes associated with their element. So like Hakan, the fire one, is actually a cold and calculating backstabber. Thok, the ice one, is kind of a social manipulator. Avak, the stone one, is sort of a tinkerer, inventor, and arguably the smartest among them. Redak, or Raydak, or Rydok, or however the hell you say that, the Earth one, is basically just a big idiot brick who likes to break stuff. Vezon, the water one, is probably the dumbest and most aggressive out of any of them, which has to do with the fact that he's one half of... yeah, we'll come back to Vezon later, actually. And then Zokton, the air one, is this ice-cold demon who's also their leader and one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire universe because of this thing that he found that I'm not gonna get into, and is also made of bees. I understand that nothing about this guy visually represents that he is made of bees, but he is. Zokton is also definitely the best example of the commercials mischaracterizing the Piraka, because in the commercials, Zokton is like posing in front of a mirror with a shiny tooth, and Zokton would not be caught fucking dead posing in front of a mirror with a shiny tooth. But all of these disparate personalities are united by two common traits. One is that these guys are like evil. Quote Raydak, I kill Toa for fun. Quote Zokton, no my enemy, you do not die so easily. There are still agonies that you have yet to taste. The other common thread that links all the Piraka is that these guys all universally hate each other. They are working together due to happenstance, convenience, and the fact that nobody else will. But any of them will backstab, abandon, or actively try to kill any of the other ones at a moment's notice for no reason at all, and it is endlessly entertaining. Now, the Piraka are actually tied into the broader lore of Bionicle in a lot of weird, subtle ways. Thousands of years ago, they were all independently scouted to join the Dark Hunters, by which I mean forced to join the Dark Hunters. And I want to give you guys just a brief glimpse into the world that I am sparing you from. I'm gonna give you just a quick history of the Makoki Stone. So the Makoki Stone doesn't matter at all. It's a MacGuffin that the Toa Mata had to get in 2001 to open a door. But Bionicle is fractalizing. So let me tell you about the deep lore of the Makoki Stone. So thousands of years ago, the Makoki Stone was stolen by Vezon and Hakan from a tower guarded by a bunch of Toa on the night that that tower was raided.
The only survivor of that raid was Toa Inika, who at the time was a rookie Toa. He was told to take the Makoki Stone and flee, but it had already been stolen. Then Vezon and Hakan, in addition to the other Piraka, were recruited to the Dark Hunters, partially because they did such a good job stealing stealing the Makoki Stone. They were then sent to release a giant Rahi called the Kanohi Dragon from under Metro Nui in order to pressure Turaga Duma into letting the Dark Hunters set up a base on Metro Nui for protection. This led to Metro Nui bringing in a team of Toa to protect them, led by Leekon and also including Nidhiki. This team of Toa eventually defeated the Kanohi Dragon, and then Brutaka showed up and took it to her homeland. This led to all-out war between Metro Nui and the Dark Hunters, a war which ended when Toa Nidhiki made a deal with a Dark Hunter named Lariska, in which he would sell out the city in return for being able to rule over. But Leekon found out about this deal, so Hakan made a parallel deal with Leekon in which he would return the Makoki Stone and take Nidhiki to join the Dark Hunters in exchange for the lives of all the Dark Hunters when they lost the war. Everything went down as planned, but then later the Dark Hunters stole the Makoki Stone back, split it into 6 pieces, and auctioned off the pieces. All 6 were bought by the Brotherhood of Makuta, but then the Brotherhood lost the Makoki Stone to the Toa Haga when they did their raid on the Brotherhood, took them to Metro Nui, and used them to hide the Mask of Light there, later to be found by the Toa Hordika, and then brought the Makoki Stone to Mata Nui so that the Toa Mata could use it for their famous raid.
Now, does any of this actually matter? No, not really, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how merciful I am being to you in editing down these videos. Anyway, that's all Piraka backstory. Years after all of that, in the modern age, they hear a rumor that the Makuta of Metro Nui is dead at the hands of a Toa of Light. So Zocton, recognizing the fact that this would leave a power vacuum, decided that they should break off as their own independent organization, the Piraka.
Yo, Piraka.
So they defected from the Dark Hunters and traveled to Makuta's lair to see if there was any juicy loot there that they could use to kickstart their status as a major player in the world. There they found Makuta's corpse, except it wasn't exactly a corpse, it was just his empty armor. There was no organics in it. And they speculated that since the Brotherhood of Makuta is so ancient, its members have evolved to the point where they aren't flesh and metal, they're just energy inhabiting a metal shell. So Makuta's body was destroyed in his battle with Toa Nuva, but his energy is nowhere to be found. And then suddenly, while they're looting the lair, they all just kind of like find out about the Mask of Life. Like, they don't find a thing that tells them about the Mask of Life. It's just like 1 second they're stealing stuff, and then the next second all of them simultaneously are like, there is a Mask of Life, it's on Voya Nui, if we get it, we will become the dominant power in the universe and we can rule everything. We need to get there right now, and we need to get the Mask of Life. How did they come by this knowledge? I don't know. That's so weird. I wonder if it has something to do with Makuta. So they find 6 Toa canisters inside Makuta's lair, and they get in and use the Toa canisters to travel all the way up to Voya Nui, and they get there before the Toa Nuva do. So they're the first ones on the scene looking for the mask, and I will tell you in just a moment about how they plan to get the mask, but first, there is one other thing about the Piraka that I feel like, okay, alright, look. So, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to come for the Piraka in the way that I'm about to. And I don't know if what I'm about to say is, common knowledge in the Bionicle community, and we've all tacitly agreed that we just shouldn't talk about it, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it, so I'm gonna say it because my voice cracked, because somebody has to, but you can't get mad at me about this, okay? This isn't my fault. I didn't do this. So, the word Piraka in universe is a slur. Pretty explicitly, that's what it is. It's a word that you do not call people. It's really bad. And thousands of years in the past, when these guys were getting recruited to the Dark Hunters, the Dark Hunter recruiting them referred to them as Piraka as an insult. But then, the Piraka kind of took a liking to the term, and they started calling themselves that. You might say that they reclaimed that slur. And, it's just once you know that, you start to pick up on some other things, like how they have a rap song, and how they're referred to in all the marketing as a gang, and how they're the first Bionicle set that has something that can be fairly unambiguously called a gun, and how they come from an island that was colonized and exploited by the Brotherhood of Makuta, and the residents of that island are routinely referred to as savages and barbarians, and that Zocton was a slave, and, that's all I have to say about that. Yup, that sure is an interesting list of qualities for your heinous, unforgivable villains to have. Doesn't really affect how much I like them, because it's sort of a meta thing, doesn't have much to do with the story, but I just wanted everybody to know about that. Let's move on. So the Piraka show up on Voya Nui, and by the way, yeah, I am very uncomfortable calling them that after all we just talked about, but like, that's what they're called. There's nothing else for me to call them, Yo-Yo Piraka. And their plan is to find the Mask of Life by enlisting the help and labor of the local Matoran by pretending to be Toa that have come to save them from all their problems. And that doesn't really work, but does work a lot better than it should have, given that they look like this. Most of the Matoran actually do end up buying into it, at least for a little bit, and the Piraka put them to work draining the lava out of the volcano, but there are 6 Matoran that do not buy into it, and they find out that the Piraka are evil, which is very easy to do, and form a Matoran resistance. We spent a lot of time with these guys, but I'm really gonna gloss over them because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really care about Matoran or parts of the story where we're solely focused on Matoran. I kind of put them in the category of like the Mary Jane missions in the Spider-Man game, where I'm like, okay, I get it, I understand why we're doing this and what we're going for, but let me be Spider-Man, you know what I'm saying? Let me read about Toa. So unrest grows within the Matoran population because like these guys said they were Toa and all they've done is abuse the Matoran, but by the time they're ready to rebel, the Piraka have already come up with our new Gimmick Alert for 2006, Zammer Spheres. Zammer Spheres are these little green orbs that can be shot out of special Zammer launchers. I love these as a gimmick. They're badass. Watch this. Oh shit, I just hit my ring light. Oh shit. Zammer Spheres are fun because they are the Bionicle gimmick most capable of doing actual physical damage to a real-life human being. You know, you get somebody in the eye or the throat with one of these things, you can probably take them out. Or you could also just do the classic and be a small child and eat one because, like, oh my god, the choking hazard with these. This literally looks exactly like a small grape, except that if you eat it, you immediately die. Now, apart from being very deadly real-life weapons, Zammer Spheres in Bionicle are little bits of crystal that go intangible on impact. So you can fill them up with basically any substance and then shoot them at somebody, it'll phase into them and inject them with it. The Piraka fill their Zammer Spheres with this stuff called antidermis, which is this dark green smoke of unclear nature and origin, and Zocton was super insistent about building this giant vat in which it seemed to just spontaneously accumulate, and also it seems to maybe have some sort of like intelligence to it, like it's alive, and it only started showing up after they went to Makuta's lair. Isn't it crazy how all this weird stuff started happening after they went to Makuta's lair? I wonder if Makuta's involved. Anyway, if you hit somebody with an antidermis Zammer Sphere, it basically dominates their mind. So the Piraka hit all the Matoran with these spheres in order to mind control them into continuing their work, except for the 6 members of the Matoran resistance who are able to escape. And right about now is when the Toa Nuva finally show up. Their canisters wash up on Voya Nui, and they engage the Piraka in battle on the beach, and this fight goes really badly for them, mostly because this dude is broken. The best part of this fight is when Lewa is fighting Radak, and he's like, you should probably surrender. We defeated the Rakshi, not realizing that that is like the weakest flex that anyone has ever made, because Rakshi are a season 1 villain and we're on season 3. So saying to the Piraka we defeated the Rakshi is like rolling up to the Elite 4 and being like, yeah, I once took out like a level 20 Raticate on Route 101. So anyway, the Toa Nuva lose this fight bad, and Zocton orders them to be executed by being thrown into the volcano. Now, whilst all of this is happening, back on Metro Nui, there is unrest, because the Toa Nuva are gone, the Turaga are not telling anyone why, and there's been no word from them. So Jala takes it upon himself to go talk to them. You guys remember Jala? He was the deuterogenist of the Mask of Light movie, Takua's best friend, false herald of the mask. He goes to talk to the Turaga, and the Turaga are still trying to like protect the Matoran's feelings, I guess, so they don't tell him anything. So Jala's like, alright, nobody in the city is doing any work until we get some answers. So then Nokama goes to him in secret and explains like, yeah, Mata Nui dying, Mask of Life, we sent the Toa, but we haven't heard from them. So Jala decides to organize a rescue party, knowing full well that they probably are just all gonna die, but also that they're the last hope of the universe. Now the rescue party consists of Jala, Takanuva, and 5 other Matoran, 1 from each village. All of these Matoran are people that we know to some degree. Most of them were major characters in like baby era Bionicle, like before the Toa Mata even showed up, or like right after when they were fighting Rahi and looking for masks, like that era. To be honest, I imagine that a lot of hardcore Bionicle fans are mad at me for not going into that era in more depth, because for a lot of OG Bionicle fans, their first exposure to Bionicle was the Mata Nui online game, which is basically what it sounds like. It's this Flash game that was set in that very early era where you play as Matoran. I personally never really cared for the Mata Nui online game. I was more about the books, and as previously established, Matoran just don't really do it for me in general, so I didn't really care about that era, so that's why I never talked about it. But these are all guys that we know from that era. So again, the rescue party is Toa Nuva, Toa of Light, Jala, captain of the Fire Village military, Kongu, captain of the Air Village military, Hali, the new chronicler now that Takua is a Toa, Nuparu, an inventor, Hyuki, or possibly Huki, but I prefer Hyuki, so I'm gonna say Hyuki, a sports star, and Matoro, interpreter to Turaga Nuju. Remember how I mentioned him in the last episode? I was like, I gotta plant this seed about how Nuju only talks in bird language and he has this interpreter named Matoro. Now the seed is germinating, baby. Matoro's on the quest. So the rescue party sets out towards Voya Nui, taking a land route instead of Toa canisters. They go through some spooky stuff on their way. There's this tunnel that consumes all light that they have to pass through, and they can only get through by all joining hands, and they all go through, and Matoro is the last out, and he comes out and he sees everyone out there, but he's still holding somebody's hand in the dark, and he turns to see them, and they just like let go of his hand and disappear, and it's like, ooh, who was that? What was that? What was up with that, man? And then after that, they get to this invisible barrier that Toa Nuva can't go through, but the Matoran all walk through it just fine, but then when they try and go back, they can't. So they are now forcibly cut off from Toa Nuva. They have to continue on their own, which makes sense and is important for the story, but I'm really upset by the way that Bionicle continuously screws over Toa Nuva. Like, Mask of Light set up Toa Nuva to be super important. It really seemed like he was gonna take over leadership of the Toa and be like the main character, White Ranger style. But I guess that Bionicle head writer and a high king of the Unseelie Courts, Greg Farshtey, just hates Toa Nuva and didn't want that to happen, so Toa Nuva never gets to contribute. He doesn't come with the Toa Nuva to Voya Nui. He doesn't come with the Matoran to Voya Nui. He doesn't actually do anything until 2008, and then even then, the stuff he's doing is like sus. Anyway, Toa Nuva gets shafted by the narrative again, and the Matoran rescue party continue on their own. And as the Matoran continue on their journey, they eventually end up in a place called Karzahni, which is this horrifying hell realm. It's full of these broken, soulless Matoran, and it's also the native home of the Monas crabs, which if you've seen my first video, that's how you know this place is fucked up. Now, those among you who have been paying close attention may be like, hang on a second, Karzahni, wasn't that the name of that plant from the Metro Nui era that told Vakama that insane plot twist? You're telling me there are two different things called Karzahni? And to that I say, no, you idiot. There are three different things called Karzahni. There is the evil plant, there is the location, and there is the ruler of the location. Karzahni, who, and let's be real here, is Satan. Like, what do you even want me to say? This is the devil. Now, Karzahni is this unbelievably ancient entity. He's so old that he doesn't even know who Mata Nui is, and he exists as one part of a pair with his brother Artaka, who also has his own realm named after him, for bonus confusion. Karzahni and Artaka are both sort of like afterlife myths for the Matoran. The idea is that good Matoran who did good work go to Artaka to work in the light for all eternity, whereas bad Matoran who did bad work or are defective or lazy go to Karzahni for repairs. Again, Matoran life is really bleak. Thing is that Karzahni kind of sucked ass at his job and couldn't actually repair anything, so he basically just butchered all these Matoran and sent them off so he wouldn't have to be reminded of his failures, and then eventually he just gave up on repairing Matoran entirely and just kept them all in his hell realm, and then he stopped getting sent Matoran because everybody noticed that nobody was coming back from Karzahni. So he is delighted at these new arrivals. He uses his mask, which lets him show you visions of like bad futures, to break their spirits and put them to work. But then they find this hidden chamber containing 6 Toa canisters and this ancient Matoran who gives them all this weird, confusing exposition. Then Karzahni shows up to stop them, but Matoro tricks him into using his own mask to show himself visions of Mata Nui and Mata Nui's death, and while he's he's reeling from that, the Matoran all climb into these Toa canisters and escape, headed for Voya Nui. Meanwhile, back on Voya Nui, the Toa Nuva are able to very narrowly escape execution by volcano. They then have a brief scuffle with the Matoran resistance because they really don't trust people that claim to be Toa at this point, and then end up joining forces with them. While this is happening, we find out that there are two other major players in this conflict already on Voya Nui, and their names are Axonn and Brutaka. Axonn and Brutaka are guardians of the Mask of Life placed on Voya Nui by an organization called the Order of Mata Nui. If you think of Toa in general as Superman, the Order of Mata Nui is like Batman. They are this powerful clandestine organization that almost nobody even knows exists, and they do the dirty work in the shadows so that the Toa can maintain their image as these shining heroic exemplars of the three virtues and protectors of the Matoran. Now, design-wise, both of these guys are so fucking sick. I especially like Brutaka. The gold, the claws, the twin blade, like, come on, man. Axonn is also dope. I love the axe. I love the fully articulated hands. That's really cool. My only issue with Axonn is, like, he's so short. Like, look how short he is in comparison to Brutaka. It's bizarre because Axonn is also constantly described as this, like, hulking berserker, and, like, he's broad, but he's so short. Why is he so short? Anyway, Axonn and Brutaka have been on this island for a really long time, doing nothing but guarding the Mask of Life, and also definitely having sex. Like, the way it's written, they are for sure romantically involved, or at least were. And I don't care what you say, Farshtey, if you didn't want them to be romantically involved, you shouldn't have written them like they were for sure fucking. Now, even after all this time, Axonn is still a true believer in the cause, but Brutaka was kind of always a dickhead, actually. He has this mask that can open up dimensional gateways, which is something that you should really commit to memory because it's going to be really important later, and he's the one responsible for teleporting the Tatarak to Metro Nui. Like, one day he was just bored at his job and decided he was gonna drop Godzilla into the middle of a population center, like as a meme. Like, cause it was funny. But ever since the Great Cataclysm, he's gotten way worse. He now believes that Mata Nui has abandoned the universe, their mission is over, and he now wants the power of the Mask of Life for himself. And to that end, he is working with the Piraka, or more accurately working with Zaktan, because Zaktan is bribing him with antidermis. For some reason that is never explored, absorbing antidermis makes Brutaka stronger. I think it might be just because he's evil. But then Hakan finds out about Brutaka, and he's like, look, Brutaka, I'll give you all the antidermis if you help me kill Zaktan. And then meanwhile, Avak and Thok find out that the Mask of Life isn't even in the volcano where they thought it was, it's in this other place, and they're like, okay, now we know that, we're also gonna kill Zaktan. The Piraka are just a mess. They're all backstabbing and trying to kill each other, and right as they're in the middle of a fight, the Toa Nuva and the Matoran resistance kick down the door, and they're like, alright, round 2, bitch, let's go. And Zaktan turns to Brutaka, and he's like, look, man, we are in no shape to win this fight right now. If you take these guys out, I swear to God, I will give you all of the antidermis. Just help me out this one time. And Brutaka's like, okay, that sounds fair. And in one hit, nearly kills all the Toa Nuva and the Matoran, because Brutaka is like nuts. Order of Mata Nui members are broken. So that's pretty much game over for the Toa Nuva. The Piraka kind of loosely reassemble. They all hated each other anyway, so this whole debacle really didn't change much. And basically, it's looking like all hope is lost. But right at this moment, the Toa canisters containing the Matoran rescue party arrive on Voya Nui from Karzahni. And as they do, a bolt of lightning descends from the red star, which is, I'm not gonna explain to you right now, it is a celestial body of importance in the night sky above Mata Nui. We're avoiding the fractal, we're not talking about the fractal. And this lightning imbues the Matoran with the power they will need to complete their mission and fulfill their destiny, transforming them into the Toa Inika. So with the Toa Inika, we are once again gonna start with the marketing, because the marketing for the Toa Inika is one of the funniest things that has ever happened. Quick disclaimer, everything I'm about to say is actually real. This is real stuff. See, in 2006, alt-rock band the All-American Rejects were sailing to a concert on their private yacht when they were shipwrecked on the island of Voya Nui and subsequently kidnapped by the Piraka. Luckily, the Toa Inika are are on the scene, and they're gonna rescue the All-American Rejects, and you can help by going to freetheband.com and joining the sweepstakes. Just watch this.
The evil Piraka have captured the band. They're forcing them to play private concerts. But I've just received a text. The Inika have begun a furious battle to free the band. They need your help.
Join the Inika for the safe return of the All-American Rejects.
Thanks, Inika!
You know, 2006, it really was one of the years of all time. So yeah, basically in the marketing for the Toa Inika, the All-American Rejects are cast in the in-story role of the Toa Nuva, which is really weird, but it did result in a great commercial. And now every time anyone plays the song Move Along by the All-American Rejects, I'm like, these motherfuckers don't even know what they're doing right now. They don't understand the broader context of this song. This is not about overcoming adversity or moving on from a breakup. I actually have no idea what this song is actually supposed to be about, but it doesn't matter. This isn't about those things. This is about saving the All-American Rejects from the Piraka, you son of a bitch. I think my favorite part about this whole thing is just the image of Lego contacting the All-American Rejects, like, at the height of their fame. And they were like, we would like to center the marketing campaign for our new Lego sets around you guys getting kidnapped by the Piraka. And the All-American Rejects are like, yes, yes, fuck yeah, yes. Anyway, marketing aside, the Toa Inika are weird. The fact that they were created by this red star lightning surface failsafe thing means that they are not normal Toa. They are infused with lightning. Like, they have their elemental powers, but their elemental powers have lightning in them, which makes sense for, like, water. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, water with lightning in it. Makes less sense for Earth. I don't really know what lightning-infused Earth means. By the way, the word Inika is in reference to them being weird lightning star Toa and has nothing to do with the fact that they're looking for the Kanohi Ignika, the Mask of Life. That's based on the word, like, ignition. It's unrelated. I cannot fathom why they did this. Like, what? Like, what? Why would you name... What? The Toa Inika's lightning infusion also makes them immune to the effects of antidermis somehow. It also makes their faces these radiantly glowing voids, and then their masks are like alive, which was never really explained. I think maybe they were going somewhere with that, but they had to scrap it, probably because people didn't really like the Toa Inika, which brings me very neatly to their designs. Now, when it comes to the design of the Toa Inika, you know, here's what I'll say for them, okay? They tried. Now, okay, that isn't entirely as facetious and dickish as it sounds, because I do genuinely see and appreciate an effort to push the boundaries of what a Toa can be and look like in the Toa Inika. And to be fair, there are things about them that I like. The multi-shot semi-automatic Zamra launcher is, of course, awesome. I really like the colors on the Toa Inika. I think the gold and gunmetal and silver accents look great. The white on Hali is awesome. It kind of gives her like a breaking waves look. And I appreciate that they finally realized that brown isn't a very exciting color for a Bionicle, and have now made the brown one more like orange-yellow. I think that's a great step. Also, while I'm generally kind of ambivalent about their weapons, I do appreciate that they've got these cool like light-up lightsaber bits, which, by the way, this thing still works. You probably can't see it that well, but it's flashing red. This Bionicle is 18 years old. This thing can vote. Whatever they're using to power the Toa Inika lightsabers, they should be powering the entire planet. But then on the other hand, we have the things that I don't like about the Toa Inika, which is everything else about the Toa Inika. The Toa Inika's proportions are so fucked up. Why are their limbs so long? Why are they so weirdly lanky? Why are their legs like this? What's wrong with their knees? Why is their armor so rattly? Why is it not held on right? Why are they taller than Axonn? It does not make any sense for them to be taller than Axonn. But then by far the worst thing about the Toa Inika is their faces. Their faces aren't really faces. They're these featureless green things, which is supposed to reflect how their faces glow, and then their masks are these sort of hollow shells that just kind of pop on. But the thing is that they look terrible. The only one that even kind of looks good is Matoran, and it's because they didn't try and give him a mouth. The mouths are really what I mean, Jala just generally looks awful. Like, this mask is a travesty, but it's It's the mouths. Like, the mouths are really, I don't like the mouths. So yeah, unfortunately, the Toa Inika designs suck. They're like the worst Toa. I think everybody kind of agrees on that. But going back to the story, one thing that I do like about the Toa Inika is their personalities. See, kind of like the Piraka, I see in the Toa Inika an effort to subvert the usual elemental stereotypes. I mean, like, Hyuki, the Toa of Stone, there isn't really an effort there. He's a lot like Pohatu, but let's look at Jala, for example. Jala is the Toa of Fire, and like all Toa of Fire before him, he is kind of the de facto leader of his team, but he has seen the mistakes that Tahu and Vakama made, and is actively out to not make those mistakes. Similarly, Kongu is aware that the Toa of Air is usually the silly one, so he willingly steps into a kind of comic relief position, knowing that this is a pretty intense situation, and that somebody has to bring some levity. Then we've got Nuparu, the Toa of Earth, who is a hyperactive tinkerer whose mask literally lets him fly. Hali, Toa of Water, who is kind of a fucking savage, to be honest. And finally, Matoro, Toa of Ice, who is one of the kindest and most empathetic characters in all of Bionicle. So final verdict on the Toa Inika: design bad, everything else good, marketing amazing.
Thanks, Inika!
So the Toa Inika show up on Voya Nui, and they do a little bit of screwing around where they're like, whoa, what's going on? What's up with our powers and lightning and mask powers and shitty designs? And then pretty quickly they link up with the Matoran resistance, who were able to escape from the Piraka because the Piraka entrusted Brutaka with disposing of them, and Brutaka saw them about to be eaten by a snake and was like, yeah, I'm not gonna let that happen. And then he's like, oh, but why do I even care? They're just Matoran and I'm evil. He's having like redemption arc flags. Like we're not there yet. He's still evil, but the flags are there. So the Toa Inika get Zammer launchers that the Matoran resistance stole from the Piraka, except these ones are loaded with spheres containing energized protodermis, which counteracts the effects of the antidermis when you shoot somebody with it. Turns out there's a pool of energized protodermis on Voya Nui, and Velika found it and loaded these spheres with it, and we're not gonna talk about why Velika knew it was there and why he knew it would do this. We're not doing the fractal. We're not gonna talk about Velika. So the Toa start going around shooting Matoran with these spheres and freeing them from subjugation by the Piraka. Meanwhile, the Piraka are working on yet another goddamn scheme. Hakan goes to the others and he's like, listen guys, Zocton's been working with Brutaka. He's gonna screw us all over and get us killed so that they can have the Mask of Life. So they make a special Zammer sphere that will steal Brutaka's power, because he's like crazy powerful, and transfer it to them. While they're doing that, the Toa Inika finish freeing the Matoran, and they're like, you guys go look for the Toa Nuva, we're gonna fight the Piraka. So they roll up to the Piraka's lair and engage them and Brutaka in combat, and it goes shockingly well for the fact that Brutaka by himself took out the entire Toa Nuva team in one hit. The Toa Inika are just really weird and hard to fight and hard to deal with. So this fight goes really well for them and they basically win, but then at the last second, Hakan sees Brutaka and he shoots him with the special Zammer sphere. But Fox sees him doing this from across the room and he's like, oh hell no, dude. So he runs over, grabs Hakan, so when the sphere hits Brutaka, the two of them get the power, it gets split 50-50. So Brutaka is now out of the game and Hakan and Thok are crazy powerful, so they blow everybody up and go to get the Mask of Life themselves. When the Toa Inika and the rest of the Piraka recover from that, they decide that they're best served by forming an alliance, so the Piraka create another Zammer sphere that'll undo what the first Zammer sphere did. Meanwhile, Axonn shows up and talks to the Toa, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna stay here and guard Brutaka, because if you guys succeed and he gets his powers back, somebody has to stop him from just going over to where you guys are and killing all of you, so that'll be me. Also, here's yet another Zammer sphere that does something else, and you will need it to help you get the Mask of Life. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Hakan and Thok have their new Brutaka powers for like maybe 5 minutes before they start immediately trying to kill each other. And in their fight, they blow up this huge section of the ground, which reveals a staircase leading down into the depths of Voya Nui, where lies the Mask of Life. So they're fighting, and then the other Piraka and the Toa Inika show up, and they join the fight, and it becomes this insane brawl that's actually pretty cool. And then Hakan and Thok are like, alright, neither of us are gonna be able to take all these guys by ourselves. We'll blast them one more time, and then we can kill each other. So they team up and unleash this big blast that knocks everybody out, but at the same moment, Hyuki shoots the Zammer sphere, and it returns their powers to Brutaka, which also knocks them out. So everybody's knocked out. And the first one to wake up is Zocton, and he gathers up all the Piraka, and he's like, alright, look guys, this shit needs to stop. There have been 6 double crosses in the last day. Can we work as a team for 5 minutes, get the Mask of Life, and then we can do whatever. We can all kill each other. I don't care. Let's just get the mask. So the Piraka are once again a cohesive team, or as close to that as they ever are, and they head down the staircase. And then soon after that, the Toa Inika wake up, and they're like, okay, the Piraka are gone. They definitely went down these stairs. We gotta follow them. We gotta make damn sure they do not get the mask. So they begin their final descent toward the Mask of Life.
'Cause we're Piraka.
So Team Piraka and Team Inika take two different routes to get down to the Mask of Life and end up encountering different obstacles. The Piraka first encounter an area that manifests the greatest fear of anyone who enters it, and for the Piraka, their greatest fear is Urnak, a legendary boogeyman from their culture, who is fucking crazy. Like, look at this, man. He's got skulls on his Zammer launcher. Quote Urnak, alive you can fill the air with the music of your screams, dead you are just silent meat. So that's Urnak. Then the Piraka encounter like a prisoner's dilemma room where they're all trapped in a cylinder with a switch, and it's like, if you all hit the switch at the same time, you will all be released, but if only one of you hits the switch, that one will go free and the rest will drop into this pit and drown. And obviously, since they're the Piraka, one of them is immediately like, oh hell yeah man, hit the switch, and then, you know, it was a trick. They all fall into this water. They manage to escape, but they are exposed to the water beneath Voya Nui, and this water has certain properties that it will matter later that they were exposed to it. Meanwhile, the Toa Inika encounter their own obstacles. The first one I want to talk about is this dude, Umbra. He's fun because he has roller skates, except that in Bionicle canon, wheels don't exist. So these are described as like little gears on the sides of his feet, which I just find delightful. And then the other thing of note about Umbra is that he has the ability to turn into a laser. So he turns into a laser and he's flying all around the room at the speed of light, and the Toa are like, we need to slow this guy down. And then one of them is like, where's a mask of time when you need one? And I almost had a fucking aneurysm when I read that. Then the Toa enter the Chamber of Death, in which they are all sealed in, and this voice is like, none of you are getting out of here until one of you volunteers to die. And immediately Matoran steps up. He's like, look guys, it has to be me. I am not a warrior or a athlete or even a chronicler. I'm just a translator, and I'm not even that anymore because now I'm a Toa. I'm not gonna be able to save the universe with my fists or my wits, but maybe I can do it with my sacrifice. So Matoran's sacrifice is accepted and he is obliterated, but then seconds later he reforms completely fine because the point wasn't actually to die. The point was to have the selflessness and willpower to be willing to die. So the Toa Inika and the Piraka both reach the bottom of the stairs. They have a little scuffle, which the Piraka win, and the Piraka end up going first into the Chamber of the Mask of Life. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Axonn is fighting Brutaka, and Brutaka is initially winning this fight because Axonn is still trying to redeem his boyfriend, but then eventually Axonn is like, alright, you know what, I don't think this is gonna actually happen. He enters rage mode, and Brutaka's like, oh shit, I can't beat him while he's in rage mode, so he tries to absorb all the antidermis to get stronger, but Axonn shatters the vat, and it all dissipates into the atmosphere. Then Brutaka tries to use his mask to open a portal to the Shadow Realm and trap Axonn in that, and that doesn't work either, although it does release Kraka and the Tatarak from the Shadow Realm. You remember them? They were in the metro... And Axonn manages to blast Brutaka with energy and win the fight. But within seconds of him winning, this dude called Botar suddenly teleports into the room. And I have a real issue with Botar, and I will tell you why. So Botar is also a member of the Order of Mata Nui, just like Axonn and Brutaka, but his job is that whenever anyone commits crimes against Mata Nui, he is supposed to teleport in, grab them, and then teleport them to a place called the Pit, which is like special Supermax Mata Nui jail. The issue is that Botar only ever shows up after the fight is already over. Botar never actually fights anybody. He only does what he's doing here, which is show up and be like, okay, I'm taking this guy to the pit. And usually what happens, because this happens a few times, is whoever won the fight is like, okay, no, come on, Botar. I need to either redeem this guy or like interrogate him. You can't just take him off to the pit. And Botar is like, oh yeah? Well, that means you're violating the law of love Mata Nui too. I'll take you to the pit too, bitch, let's go. And nobody ever tries to call him on this. Nobody is ever like, you know what, Botar? I kinda don't think that you can. I actually think that you can't do that. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Makuta literally destroyed Metra Nui and cast Mata Nui into eternal slumber. That has to constitute a crime against the Great Spirit, and Botar has had 1,000 years to do something about that and hasn't done dick. Look, like, I'm sorry to all the Botar fans out there. When I was a kid, I thought he was super cool, mostly because he looks like this, and also because he's framed in the narrative as if he's super cool and strong and badass. But no, this man is a fraud. This is the biggest fraud in all of Bionicle. Anyway, Botar wants to take Brutaka to the pit, and Axonn doesn't have the balls to call him on it. So he's like, all right, fine, you can do that, but this is not a permanent arrangement. I'll get him out one day. And Botar's like, I'm Botar. Now, meanwhile, back underground, the Piraka enter the Chamber of the Mask of Life, where they encounter its final guardian.
The vicious spider is ruthless master Vezon.
So, let's have the Vezon conversation. Now, Vezon here, in addition to being like top 5 craziest Bionicle sets, dude has a tattered cape, is the 7th Piraka. And when I say that, you should be like, what do you mean, the 7th Piraka? There's no 7th Piraka. There were 6 Piraka when they joined the Dark Hunters, 6 of them when they defected, and 6 of them when they arrived on Voya Nui. Well, okay, so the thing, I'm putting this down, this is insane. I am pretty sure that at some point the plan changed with Vezon. Like, there was clearly always an intent to have a 7th Piraka and have him be the final boss of this era, but I'm pretty sure that, like, who and what he is changed somewhere along the line. Cause, like, the first reference to Vezon is in this book about the Dark Hunters written from the perspective of their leader, the Shadowed One, where he's talking about the Piraka, and he's like, recently, 7 Dark Hunters defected, and I'm gonna hunt them down. 6 of them are detailed here. The 7th had his entry torn out and burned, and it's like, oh damn, who is this guy? This guy was bad news. But like, that isn't true. Vezon was never a Dark Hunter, and also it, like, the Shadowed One cannot possibly know that he even exists. So I think the plan had to have changed, and also I think the plan had to have changed because the origin that we do get for Vezon is so insane that I cannot believe it wasn't made up on the fly. Okay, so look, remember how I said that Vezok, the blue Piraka, is the dumbest and most aggressive out of all of them? Well, that was not always the case. He used to be a lot more intelligent and cunning and calculating. But then, when they all went to Makuta's lair, they found this thing called the Spear of Fusion, which is what it sounds like. It's a spear, it shoots a beam that can fuse 2 things together. But it can also be used in reverse, where it shoots one thing and splits it into 2. And one of the other Piraka shot Vezok with this spear in reverse, splitting him into 2 entities. Vezok, who kept all the power and aggression, and Vezon, who got all the intelligence and cunning. Now that doesn't really make any sense because that's not really like a defusion. Like, you'd think if Vezok got split into 2 entities, one of the 2 resulting entities wouldn't just still be Vezok. This is really more like an extraction than a defusion, but that doesn't matter. What does matter is that Vezon was in Makuta's lair with the other Piraka when they all suddenly got the idea to go after the Mask of Life. So Vezon immediately betrayed all of them because of course he did, and then through methods that kind of are explained, but I do not buy, was able to find his own Toa canister, get to Voya Nui way before the rest of them, completely avoid notice by the Matoran, get into the staircase without blowing open the entrance, and make it all the way down to the Mask of Life by himself. Unfortunately, the Mask of Life is like extravagantly cursed. Not even the great beings could touch it, and they made it. So when Vezon went to grab it, it fused itself to the back of his head, fused him to a giant spider called Fanart, and made them both into its guardian, which gave us the immortal line,
Vezon's got the mask, but Fenrak's got the teeth, and they're hungry for battle.
There's also a revelation here that this is why the Piraka were sent for the Mask of Life. It's because it's cursed, and whoever sent them here thought they were expendable and wanted them to tank the curse instead of themselves. I wonder who could have done that. I wonder who sent them to get the Mask of Life. Now, as we covered, Vezon design-wise is completely unhinged. Character-wise, he's a lot of fun. He's described often as insane, but he's insane in the way that, like, the Joker is insane, where there's no underlying psychosis. He's just evil and quippy, but it does make him very entertaining. So the Piraka show up and they're like, Vezon, you son of a bitch. I knew we'd find you down here. All right, what's it gonna take for you to give us the mask, man? And Vezon's like, kill Vezok. I don't want to be refused to him ever. And the Piraka are like, okay. And they try to kill Vezok, and Vezok's like, yeah, you goddamn idiots. He's not gonna give us the mask. It's fused to his head. And Vezon's like, okay, all right, you got me. It's fused to the back of my, yeah, all right. You guys are not getting this mask. It's straight up not happening. So Vezon fights the Piraka, and, like, he destroys them. They lose really bad. And then the Toa Inika roll it. It's really glossed over in the books, but I love the idea of this moment of them coming into this room and seeing a 7th Piraka riding a giant spider and just being like, who the fuck is this guy? So the Toa Inika fight Vezon and Fanart, and it's a difficult fight because they can absorb kinetic energy to get stronger, but they manage to force them back into the lava. There's lava in this room, by the way. But then the Mask of Life is like, nah, my guardians ain't going down that easy, and evolves Fanart into this insane thing called the Kardis Dragon. This thing has the ability to shoot an infinite laser, and it has like a Dragon Ball Z beam clash with the Toa. And the Toa can't possibly win because, again, infinite laser. But then Jala runs over to Kongu, who has a mask of telepathy, and he's like, listen, man, I need you to share the Mask of Life's thoughts, because the Mask of Life is itself alive, with Vezon. So Kongu does this, and in this moment, both he and Vezon learn two things. One is that the Mask of Life hates Vezon. Like, of course it does. He's a creepy little gremlin monster man, but, like, he didn't know that, I guess. And two, much more importantly, the Mask of Life has chosen a new bearer. And who is that bearer but Matoro? See, the Mask of Life has actually had its eye on Matoro for some time. Because here's what you gotta remember. Matoro spent 1,000 years knowing about Metru Nui and all the Turaga's other secrets from sitting in on their meetings and told no one. He is well acquainted with responsibility and bearing burdens. Then later on, when the Matoran rescue party was going through that scary dark tunnel and Matoro, like, took somebody's hand and then it wasn't any of them and they disappeared, that was the Mask of Life testing him from afar to see if he would lend his help even in a scary and confusing situation. And of course he passed that test, and then all of this was really clinched by him being willing to sacrifice himself in the Chamber of Death. So it has chosen Matoran. And Vezon has a complete meltdown about this, where he's like, no, I'm the bearer of the Mask of Life. No one is gonna have it, it's mine. And this affords the Toa a chance to nail him with the Zammer Sphere that Axonn gave them, which freezes him in stasis. So now they have an open opportunity to go get the Mask of Life off of his head. And Kongu's like, let Matoro get the mask, actually. And everybody's like, why? And he's like, just let the Matoro get the mask, okay? So Matoro grabs the mask, and it just comes off instantly, and he holds it with no ill effects, because he's the chosen one. So the Toa Inika seem to have won. They have the Mask of Life. But then the Piraka all get up, and they're like, we've been awake for like 20 minutes. We were just waiting for you to defeat Vezon for us. Now, we're gonna take the mask. But before that can happen, Kardis wakes up and shoots a beam at them and knocks the mask out of Matoro's hand. But the mask, instead of dropping to the ground, suddenly starts to fly away, and the Toa Inika go after it, and the Piraka go after them, leaving Vezon behind and also breaking the Spear of Fusion on their way out. So the Toa Inika chase the mask across the entire island until it dives into the ocean. And Hali goes in after it, but she isn't able to catch it, and the water pressure gets too intense and she starts drowning. But then she's suddenly saved by this Matoran who is swimming up from below. And he carries her up to the shore, says something about an underwater city that needs help, and then promptly dies. So the Toa Inika are like, okay, well, the mask just flew into the ocean. What do we do now? But then Axonn rolls up, accompanied by Botar, who is carrying Brutaka, and by the Toa Nuva, who were saved from the Piraka's imprisonment by by the Matoran resistance #FreeTheBand.
Thanks, Inika!
So everybody meets up on the beach and they formulate a new plan. The Toa Inika are gonna go down into the depths beneath Voya Nui to look for the Mask of Life. Meanwhile, the Toa Nuva, who are destined to awaken Mata Nui, not save his life, which is why they failed to get the Mask of Life here, receive a list of instructions from Botar that they need to carry out in order to achieve that goal. And Axonn is gonna show the Toa Inika a secret way down into the depths and then stay on Voya Nui to look after the Matoran. By the way, while this is happening, the Piraka are watching from like a bush and they see 12 Toa and Axonn and Botar and they're like, okay, well we still do need the Mask of Life because otherwise the Shadowed One is gonna kill us, but maybe we shouldn't attack right now. Let's bide our time. Let's wait and see. So with the plan in place, the Toa Nuva depart and the Toa Inika begin their journey down into the depths. But what awaits them beneath the waves, you ask? Well, I'm not gonna tell you right now. You're gonna have to come back for the next video. And I really advise you do that because not only does the next video contain my favorite designs in all of Bionicle, it also contains easily the most emotionally affecting moment in Bionicle. And if you've made it this far into these videos, you deserve to experience that. So, subscribe to the channel so you're notified when I drop the next one, and I will see you all in part 4, the Mari Nui era, where we learn that a crab-mounted gun is an ideal weapon, Makuta's entire life was inspired by a shark man, and the Borok did nothing wrong. See you next time!
Piraka, go